The halls of this brilliant palace gleamed under the soft glow of the twin suns. Towers of silver spiraled into the sky, and intricate patterns of crystal and metal reflected light in every direction. Inside, the council of elders gathered, whispering behind their hands and casting secretive glances toward the throne. Today was a day meant for laughter, or at least for amusement at someone else's expense. Princess Lyra, the youngest member of the royal family, paced in her chambers. She felt a strange mix of boredom and irritation. Her life had always been one of rules, ceremonies, and endless lessons in etiquette. She was expected to smile, to bow, and to plan her future as a princess destined for marriage. But today, she sensed something unusual in the air. The whispers of the court seemed sharper, filled with excitement and mischief. Outside her window, the sky shimmered with the colors of approaching spacecraft. The council had called for a special envoy from the human colonies, a race known for their unpredictability, their stubborn courage, and, according to Zrillian gossip, their lack of refinement. Humans fascinated the Zrillians because they were primitive in some ways, yet incredibly clever in others. Lyra did not care much about humans. They had always seemed awkward, loud, and entirely too emotional for her taste. But the excitement in the palace hinted at something unusual. Today, she would find out just how unusual it was. In the main hall, her father, Emperor Varen, leaned back in his throne with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Around him, the council's leaders chuckled quietly. "It is time," one of them whispered, "for the human to meet our princess." Lyra stepped into the hall, her silver gown trailing behind her like liquid starlight. Her expression was calm, almost regal, but a small flicker of curiosity danced in her eyes. She had been prepared for many encounters with dignitaries, but there was something different about the way the council behaved today. Something mocking. A hush fell over the room as the doors opened. A human ambassador stepped in, a tall man with a lean build, dark hair, and eyes that seemed to shine with intelligence and calm confidence. He wore a uniform that was simple but well made, his posture straight, his gaze steady. Captain Alex Mercer, the chief counselor, announced with exaggerated formality. "From the United Human Colonies. He has traveled light years to meet Princess Lyra." Lyra raised an eyebrow. The humans traveled far, she knew, but this felt different. There was a strange weight in the air, a feeling of expectation and hidden amusement. As Alex stepped closer, he gave a polite bow. "Your Highness," he said, his voice smooth, yet carrying a quiet strength. "It is an honor to meet you." Lyra nodded, her lips curving into a faint smile. "The honor is mine, Captain Mercer," she replied. Her tone was courteous, neutral, careful not to give away her thoughts. The council stifled their laughter. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the punchline of their prank. You see, the Zrillians had long believed that Lyra could not bear children. Her condition had been kept secret, but the council had whispered among themselves. Plotting a subtle humiliation, they decided to gift her to a human as a test. Surely, they thought, a human would be bewildered, frustrated, or even offended. Surely, this would become a tale told with laughter for generations. What they did not expect, however, was the calm confidence of Captain Mercer. "Princess Lyra," Alex said, stepping closer, "I understand this may be unusual for both of us, but I believe in respect and cooperation. Let us work together, shall we?" Lyra blinked. For a moment, she was speechless. She had expected surprise, perhaps hesitation. She had expected awkwardness, maybe even ridicule. But this human, this supposed object of mockery, spoke with such assurance, such sincerity, that her initial irritation melted into curiosity. The council leaned forward, waiting for the human to stumble, waiting for the princess to react with shock. But neither of them did. Instead, Lyra inclined her head. "Very well, Captain Mercer. Let us work together." A ripple of suppressed laughter went through the council. Clearly, the joke would need more time to play out. The first days of the journey were tense. Lyra and Alex traveled aboard a sleek transport ship, gliding between star systems. Lyra was still wary, unsure what the humans expected from her or what she should expect from them. Alex, however, remained patient. treating every small problem on the ship with a calm practicality that both frustrated and fascinated her. One morning, as the ship passed through a cluster of luminous asteroids, a system malfunction triggered the emergency lights. The artificial gravity flickered, causing both of them to stumble. Lyra nearly collided with a control panel, but Alex caught her just in time. "You should be careful," he said, steadying her. "We're far from the nearest station, and mistakes can be dangerous here." Lyra straightened herself, a spark of amusement in her eyes. "And yet, you seem to expect me to handle this like a trained officer." Alex smiled faintly. "I expect everyone to handle what they can, and if they can't, I help them." There was a Genan attitude she was not used to. He did not look down on her. He did not laugh. He did not treat her as fragile. He simply helped. And in that simple act, something shifted inside Lyra. She realized that she had been treated as a problem her whole life. But this human, he treated her as a person. The journey continued, filled with small challenges, navigating asteroid fields, repairing minor system errors, and charting courses through unfamiliar star maps. Each trial revealed something new, not just about the ship or the galaxy, but about each other. Alex admired Lyra's sharp mind, her ability to think quickly under pressure. Lyra discovered the human's quiet resilience, the way he solved problems not with force, but with thought and patience. At night, when the ship's corridors were bathed in soft starlight, Lyra found herself staring out the viewport, wondering about the galaxy beyond. She thought about her court, about the whispers, about the cruel prank that had brought her here. But more than that, she thought about Alex, about his calm demeanor, his steady presence, and the strange warmth she felt when he was near. It was during one of these quiet nights that the first real spark of trust formed between them. Lyra confided a small truth, one she had never shared with anyone in her family. She spoke of the loneliness she had felt, the weight of expectations, and the secret shame she carried about her condition. Alex listened without interruption, without judgment. When she finished, he said simply, "You are not defined by what others expect of you. You are defined by what you do, by how you act, and by the choices you make." Lyra had no words for a long moment. She had expected ridicule, lectures, or pity. Instead, she found understanding and, for the first time in her life, a sense of hope. Meanwhile, the Xyrillian Council remained oblivious to the bond growing aboard the human ship. They continued to scheme, convinced that their prank would eventually succeed. But the seeds of surprise had already been sown. The human and the princess were not behaving as expected. And sometimes, unpredictability is the first step towards something extraordinary. Days turned into weeks. Lyra's initial irritation faded into a cautious curiosity, which gradually grew into respect. Alex, too, found himself fascinated by the princess, not as a political figure, not as a subject of amusement, but as a person of intelligence, courage, and hidden strength. One evening, as the twin suns of a distant system dipped below the horizon of a purple planet, Lyra finally allowed herself a small smile. She had no idea what awaited them in the stars ahead, no idea whether the court's prank would end in triumph or disaster. But for the first time, she felt that she had chosen her own path, and perhaps, just perhaps, this human might be more than a witness to her journey. Perhaps, in some way, he might become part of it. Little did Lyra know, the journey that began as a cruel prank was only the beginning. Beyond the stars, beyond the council's laughter, awaited challenges and discoveries that would change her life and the galaxy forever. The ship hummed softly as it glided through the endless black of space. Stars streaked past the viewing panels like rivers of light, and distant planets hung like gems in the darkness. For Princess Lyra, the journey had begun to feel less like a punishment and more like an adventure, though she would never admit it out loud. Captain Alex Mercer moved through the corridors with quiet confidence. Every step seemed calculated yet effortless, and every task he touched was handled with skill. Lyra watched him as he checked the ship's systems, recalibrated sensors, and adjusted the engines. There was a rhythm to his work that she found calming. "You check everything twice," she remarked, folding her arms as she leaned against the wall. Alex glanced up and gave a small smile. Better to be safe than sorry. In space, a small mistake can be dangerous. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. She had grown up in a palace where mistakes were punished, often harshly. But here, mistakes were met with patience and problem-solving. It was a strange and liberating feeling. Their routine had begun to develop. Mornings were spent on navigation, afternoons on repairs and training, and evenings in the observation deck, where the twin suns of distant star systems bathed them in soft light. Slowly, the walls between them began to crumble. Lyra started to ask questions not about protocols or politics, but about Alex's life, his experiences, and the strange human ways that fascinated her. Humans are so curious, she said one evening, watching him adjust the ship's communication array. Always asking questions, always learning. Alex looked up, his eyes reflecting the soft starlight. Curiosity keeps us alive. It helps us survive, adapt, and understand the universe. And sometimes, it helps us understand each other. Lyra felt a flutter of warmth in her chest. She realized that Alex was not just polite. He genuinely cared about learning who she was, not just what she represented. For a princess used to people bowing and obeying, this was new and oddly comforting. The journey, however, was not without danger. One day, as they approached the outer edge of a newly discovered asteroid belt, the ship's sensors detected an unusual energy signature. Alex studied the readings carefully. "This is not a normal asteroid field," he said. "The energy spike suggests some kind of anomaly. It could be natural or artificial." Lyra's eyes widened. "Artificial? You mean someone might be there?" Alex nodded. "Possibly. We'll need to be careful. Stay close to me." As they maneuvered through the dense field of rocks, Lyra's pulse quickened. She had spent her life in palaces, shielded from danger, but here she was, relying on her own reflexes and Alex's guidance to survive. She felt alive in a way she had never felt before. Suddenly, a massive asteroid shifted unexpectedly, hurtling toward the ship. Alarms blared. Lyra grabbed the control panel and followed Alex's instructions, twisting knobs and pressing buttons as they worked together to avoid collision. "Now, to the left," Alex shouted, and Lyra twisted the controls. The ship spun gracefully, narrowly missing the asteroid. They floated in the quiet aftermath, both catching their breath. "That was close," Lyra admitted, her hands trembling slightly. Alex gave a reassuring smile. "We made it, and you handled yourself well. You were calm under pressure." Lyra blinked in surprise. Praise was not something she was used to, especially for her own skill. I just followed your lead. That's what teamwork is," Alex said simply. "And you did it perfectly." In that moment, Lyra realized something important. She had always believed her life was dictated by rules and expectations. But here, in the vastness of space, she could choose her own path. She could act, make decisions, and even fail without judgment. And someone this human respected her for it. The days passed, filled with small adventures and challenges. They navigated unstable wormholes, repaired the ship after minor collisions, and even negotiated with a group of traders in a distant star system who were suspicious of humans and aliens traveling together. Each obstacle strengthened their bond, building trust, respect, and an understanding that went beyond words. One night, Lyra found herself on the observation deck, staring at a planet with oceans that glowed faintly under its twin moons. Alex joined her quietly, carrying 2 cups of warm tea, a human custom he had insisted she try. "You drink it like this," he explained, handing her a cup. "It's simple, but comforting." Lyra took a sip and felt the warmth spread through her body. "It is pleasant," she admitted. "Not like anything we have in the palace." They stood together in silence, watching the planet rotate slowly beneath them. Lyra felt a strange sense of peace. She realized that she was beginning to trust Alex not just with small tasks, but with her thoughts and fears. She even found herself laughing at his jokes, something she had not done in years, She said softly, "I never thought humans could be reliable. I expected chaos, mistakes, and arrogance." Alex chuckled. "Some humans are all of those things, but some of us try to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. Lyra smiled faintly, realizing that she had been wrong about humans. She had expected them to be weak or foolish, but Alex proved that they could be strong, clever, and compassionate. He was different from anyone she had ever met. Their bond grew even stronger during a surprise encounter with space pirates. The pirates attempted to intercept their ship, hoping to steal cargo and valuables. Lyra and Alex worked together seamlessly, Alex piloting the ship with precision, while Lyra managed the defensive systems with intelligence and skill. The battle was tense, the ship shaking as laser blasts hit its hull. Lyra's heart pounded, but she did not falter. She followed Alex's commands, adjusting shields, redirecting power, and even taking the initiative to fire defensive pulses. When the pirates finally retreated, Lyra slumped into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. "You were amazing," Alex said, his eyes full of respect. "You stayed calm, made decisions, and adapted to every situation." Lyra shook her head, smiling weakly. "I just followed your example." "No," Alex said firmly. "You didn't just follow. You acted. You were brave. And that's why we succeeded." For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of pride in herself. She had always been judged for what she could not do. But here, in the vastness of space, she had proven her strength. And someone, not her family, not her court, but a human, recognized it that night. Lyra reflected on the journey so far. The prank this Brilliant Council had played seemed small and petty in comparison to the adventures she now experienced. She realized that the human who was supposed to be the target of the joke had become something far more important in her life: a friend, a partner, and a guide through the unknown. Even as the stars passed by, she felt a sense of excitement. The universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders she had never imagined. And she was not alone. She had Alex Mercer by her side, a human who had proven that courage, intelligence, and kindness could cross even the greatest distances between worlds. Little did they know, the adventures ahead would test their skills, their courage, and the bond they were forming. The galaxy held surprises far greater than any asteroid field or pirate attack. And somewhere, deep within Lyra, a quiet hope began to grow, hope that this journey was only the beginning of something extraordinary. As the ship continued its course, gliding silently through the endless expanse, Lyra and Alex stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars. And for the first time in her life, Lyra felt that she was not just a princess caught in a prank. She was a traveler, an adventurer, and perhaps even a person capable of shaping her own destiny. The transport ship glided through the dark expanse of space, its hull reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Princess Lyra sat in the observation deck, her fingers lightly tracing the patterns of the stars beyond the glass. Her mind wandered to the days before this journey, when she had believed her life was fixed by rules, expectations. In the whispers of this brilliant court, Captain Alex Mercer entered quietly, carrying a small datapad. "Lyra," he said softly, "we've received new readings from the system ahead. There's something unusual about the planet we're approaching." Lyra's curiosity sparked. "Unusual? How?" Alex handed her the pad. "Energy readings, fluctuating in ways I haven't seen before. Some natural phenomena could cause it, but the patterns suggest something rare. We need to investigate carefully." Lyra leaned closer, studying the data. Her scientific mind, trained in Brilliant logic and observation, felt a thrill she had never experienced in the palace. For the first time, she was not a princess on display. She was an explorer, a problem solver, a partner in discovery. The planet grew larger in the viewport as they approached. Its surface shimmered with colors that seemed to shift like liquid light: emerald green oceans, violet mountain ranges, and skies streaked with pink clouds. Alex maneuvered the ship into orbit, scanning the surface for landing zones. "We should land," Alex said finally. "I think whatever is causing these readings is on the surface. It might be dangerous, but it's worth investigating." Lyra hesitated for only a moment. She had learned to trust Alex's judgment, and deep down, she longed to see the planet up close. "Very well," she said. "Let's proceed." The descent was tense. The atmosphere shimmered and shifted. and the ship shuddered under sudden gusts of wind and gravitational anomalies. Lyra gripped the console, focusing on the readings and Alex's instructions. With steady guidance, he brought the ship safely to the ground on a flat plateau near a glowing river. As they stepped out onto the surface, Lyra felt the strange energy in the air. It was subtle at first, a tingling sensation in her skin, like static electricity. But as she moved closer to the river, the sensation grew stronger, spreading warmth and light through her body. Alex noticed it too. This energy, it's unlike anything I've ever recorded. Be careful, Lyra. Lyra nodded, her curiosity overcoming caution. She approached the glowing river and knelt to touch the water. The moment her fingers grazed the surface, a sudden pulse of light coursed through her. She gasped, stumbling back, but Alex caught her. Lyra, are you all right? She blinked, her vision swirling. Then, slowly, a warmth spread through her body, a deep, steady warmth that felt like life itself awakening. She gasped again, not in fear, but in wonder. Something inside her, long dormant, had stirred. What is happening? She whispered, her voice trembling. Alex's eyes widened. I don't know exactly, but it's affecting you somehow. That energy, it's interacting with your biology in a way I can't explain. Lyra felt a strange, almost magical sensation. For decades, she had been told she could never bear children, that her body was limited by some unseen flaw. Yet now, something deep within her had shifted. It was as if the universe itself was writing the rules she had believed in for so long. Over the next few days, they conducted careful experiments, monitoring the energy, the planet, and Lyra's changing physiology. Alex worked tirelessly, scanning, recording, and analyzing every detail. Lyra marveled at the human's dedication and ingenuity. Even in the face of the unknown, he remained calm, methodical, and patient during the research. Lyra began to realize another truth. She had always believed her identity was tied to her status as a princess, her worth measured by rules and expectations. But now, she understood that her strength came from within her courage, her curiosity, and her ability to adapt. The energy had unlocked not just her physical potential, but her confidence and sense of purpose. One evening, as the twin moons of the planet rose over the horizon, Lyra and Alex sat by the glowing river. The light reflected in their eyes, casting soft shadows on their faces. You've changed, Alex said quietly, looking at her. Not just because of the energy, but because of everything we've done together. You're stronger, braver, and more yourself than you've ever been. Lyra smiled faintly. I suppose I am. I never imagined I could feel this. Capable, and it's strange. I feel hope. Hope I didn't think was possible. Alex nodded. Hope can be dangerous, but it can also be the most powerful thing in the universe. You've discovered both today. The days passed, and the energy continued to affect Lyra in subtle but profound ways. Alex monitored her carefully, amazed at the changes. Her physiology seemed to respond to the planet's energy with an adaptability he had never seen before. Even more remarkable, Lyra's confidence and clarity grew, and with them, a quiet sense of destiny. Then, one morning, as they prepared to leave the planet, a sudden storm erupted. Waves of glowing energy cascaded across the land, and the ground trembled beneath them. The ship rocked violently, and alarms blared. Hold on, Alex shouted, stabilizing the controls. Lyra gripped the console, feeling the energy from the planet surge through her once more. This time, instead of fear, she felt power. Calmly, she extended her hands, focusing on the energy around her. To Alex's astonishment, the pulses of light seemed to bend to her will, stabilizing the ship and calming the storm. You controlled it, Alex exclaimed. Lyra shook her head in wonder. I don't know how, but I could feel it, as if it were part of me. Alex studied her carefully. Lyra, this is incredible. Whatever this energy is, it's interacting with you in ways even humans and Zrillions could never predict. You've changed, and not just physically. Lyra realized he was right. The energy had awakened something long suppressed, not just in her body, but in her mind and spirit. She had been told she was limited, that she could never fulfill certain roles, that she was flawed. Now, she understood that those limitations had existed only in the beliefs of others. She was capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. As they prepared to leave the planet, Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and wonders. But for the first time, she felt ready to face them. She had Alex by her side, and more importantly, she had discovered a strength within herself that no one could take away. During the journey back through space, Lyra and Alex spoke less and observed more. They marveled at distant nebulae, analyzed readings from newly discovered star systems, and documented every detail of their encounter with the planet. Every moment strengthened their bond, built on trust, respect, and the knowledge that they had faced the unknown together and survived. Lyra also began to think of her future. She had always imagined it as predetermined, dictated by her family and the expectations of her court. But now, possibilities stretched before her like stars in the sky. She could choose her path, shape her destiny, and even challenge the assumptions of her people. Alex noticed her thoughtful silence and said gently, "Lyra, whatever happens, remember this, your worth isn't measured by what others think you can or cannot do. It's measured by what you do, by how you face challenges, and by the courage you carry in your heart." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She realized he was right. She had faced dangers, unlocked hidden strengths, and discovered abilities no one had believed possible. And she had done it all with a human, someone who had respected her, guided her, and believed in her when the rest of the galaxy doubted. Little did they know, their journey was only beginning. The awakening within Lyra was not just a personal transformation, it was a signal to the universe that humans and Zrillians could achieve far more together than anyone had ever imagined. And somewhere, far across the stars, the whispers of the Zrillian Council awaited news of their so-called prank. They had no idea that the princess they had mocked was no longer the same. She was stronger, braver, and beginning a path that would challenge every expectation placed upon her and in ways they could never have foreseen. As the ship sailed onward, Lyra stood once again on the observation deck, gazing at the endless galaxy. The universe stretched before her, full of mysteries, dangers, and opportunities. And for the first time, she felt certain of one truth. She was no longer just a princess caught in a prank. She was an adventurer, a pioneer, and perhaps even a force capable of shaping the fate of worlds. The stars seemed to shine brighter, as if in agreement. The transport ship cut through the starry blackness of space like a silver arrow. Princess Lyra stood in the observation deck, her hands resting lightly on the railing. For weeks, she had traveled through strange star systems, faced dangers she had never imagined, and discovered powers within herself she did not know existed. Now, she was heading back to her homeworld. Zrillia, a place that had once felt like a cage, full of rules, whispers, and expectations she could never meet. Captain Alex Mercer joined her quietly, carrying a small datapad. "We'll be entering Zrillian orbit soon," he said. His tone was calm, but Lyra could sense the tension beneath it. Returning home was never simple. The court would expect her to behave as she had before, obedient, graceful, and limited. Lyra nodded. She understood the challenge, and she was ready. The energy from the distant planet had changed her. She was no longer the princess whispered about for her supposed weaknesses. She had grown stronger, braver, and wiser. And now, she would show her people what she had become. As they descended into orbit, the familiar spires of Zrillia's capital came into view. The city gleamed in the light of twin suns, the towers shining like silver pillars against the blue sky. Lyra felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. She had once loved her homeworld in her way, but she had also known its cruelty, its judgments, and the endless expectations that had weighed on her like chains. The ship landed in the royal docking bay, a vast chamber filled with glistening machinery and ceremonial guards. Courtiers and palace attendants rushed forward, eager to witness the princess's return. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd. "She is back. The princess is back. Lyra stepped down from the ship with Alex by her side. Her gown was simple, practical for travel, yet still elegant, flowing softly with each step. She carried herself with a calm confidence that caught everyone's attention. This was no timid, obedient princess. This was someone who had faced the galaxy and returned. Her father, Emperor Varen, stood at the top of the grand staircase, his expression unreadable. Around him, the council murmured among themselves, their whispers tinged with doubt and curiosity. They had expected to see a humbled, frightened Lyra, someone who had been reminded of her limitations. Instead, they saw a woman transformed, her presence commanding attention and respect. "Princess Lyra," the Emperor said, his voice steady, "you have returned safely. Tell us, what have you discovered?" Lyra met his gaze calmly. "I have discovered that the universe is larger, more complex, and more alive than we imagined. I have discovered strengths within myself that I did not know existed. And I have discovered that what we believe about ourselves is not always true." A murmur ran through the council. They had expected humility, perhaps even apology. Instead, Lyra spoke with clarity, courage, and quiet authority. One of the elders, a tall figure with narrow eyes, stepped forward. "Princess, the court has long believed that your condition limits you. How can we trust these claims now?" Lyra's eyes glinted with determination. "Trust is earned through observation, not assumption. You have believed in limitations. I have learned that we are capable of far more than you imagine." Alex stepped slightly forward. Standing beside her, "Her Highness has faced challenges, survived, and grown. You may question it, but the facts are clear. She is stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before." The court fell silent. The human ambassador's words carried weight, not because of authority, but because of truth. Lyra had proven it through actions, not speeches or titles, over the next days. Lyra demonstrated her newfound abilities. She showed the court how she could interact with the strange energy she had discovered on the distant planet. With Alex's help, she stabilized energy sources, solved complex navigation problems, and even predicted natural phenomena that the council had struggled to understand. Each demonstration was a quiet triumph. The court began to realize that the princess they had once mocked was no longer the same. Her intelligence, courage, and adaptability shone brighter than any ceremonial gown or polished speech. Lyra also began to challenge the traditions of Zrillia. She questioned outdated rules, suggested new strategies for interstellar exploration, and encouraged collaboration with human allies. Each idea was carefully presented, rooted in logic and experience. The council could not dismiss them outright. Slowly, respect replaced skepticism, and curiosity replaced doubt. During one particularly tense council meeting, the chief elder raised a concern. "Your Highness, this collaboration with humans is unprecedented. How can we be certain it will benefit Zrillia?" Lyra looked at Alex and then back at the council. "Because humans have strengths that complement ours. They adapt, innovate, and persevere. They see opportunities where we see limits. This is not just about alliance, it is about learning, growing, and preparing for challenges beyond our world." The room was silent. No one spoke against her, because her words carried truth and authority. Even those who had once mocked her condition began to see her in a new light. Despite her growing confidence, Lyra remained humble. She knew her journey was far from over. There were still dangers in the galaxy, and many mysteries yet to uncover. But she also knew that she had the courage, skill, and support to face them. One evening, Lyra walked through the palace gardens with Alex. The twin moons reflected on the glassy surface of a small pond, casting soft light on their path. "You've changed your people," Alex said quietly. "They see you differently now, and it's not just because of your abilities. It's because you inspire them." Lyra smiled faintly. "I don't know if I inspire them. I only know that I refuse to be limited by what others think I cannot do. If they see that, perhaps it will inspire them." "Yes," Alex nodded. "And they will remember it. Not as a joke, not as a prank, but as a turning point. You've shown them that courage, intelligence, and determination can overcome expectations." Lyra looked at him with gratitude. "And I could not have done it without you. You taught me patience, problem-solving, and belief in myself. I owe you more than words can say." Alex smiled. "We've faced it together. That's all that matters." The days passed, and Lyra's presence in the palace became a symbol of change. She held discussions with advisors, shared insights from her journey, and introduced new strategies for diplomacy, exploration, and science. Even the young nobles began to look up to her, inspired by her courage and intellect. However, the Zrillian court still had skeptics. Some elders whispered that her powers and abilities were unnatural, that humans were dangerous influences, and that the princess's return challenged the natural order. Lyra heard these whispers, but she did not fear them. She had faced worse in the galaxy, and she knew that truth and persistence were stronger than doubt and fear. One afternoon, as she prepared to leave for a diplomatic mission to another star system, her father approached. His expression was unreadable, but there was a faint softness in his eyes. "Lyra," Emperor Varen said, "you have returned not as a princess defined by expectation, but as a woman who has discovered her own strength. You honor our people and challenge them to be better. I am proud of you." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. For so long, she had felt trapped by the expectations of others. Now, she felt recognized, not just for what she could not do, but for what she could. "I will continue to serve our people," she said, her voice steady. "Not as they expect, but as I can with courage, wisdom, and determination." Her father nodded. "Then go. The galaxy awaits, and so does your destiny." As Lyra and Alex prepared to depart, the palace watched in quiet awe. The princess who had returned from a journey meant to be a joke was now a symbol of hope, resilience, and inspiration. The human ambassador stood beside her, a reminder that alliances, courage, and trust could overcome even the deepest prejudices. As the ship rose from the docking bay, leaving the gleaming towers of Zrillia behind, Lyra felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The galaxy stretched before her, full of challenges, mysteries, and opportunities. She had returned home, but she was no longer bound by the limitations of her past. She was ready to face whatever awaited her, and she would do so with courage, intelligence, and the strength she had discovered within herself, somewhere deep in her heart. Lyra knew that her journey had only just begun. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, dangers, and discoveries. And for the first time, she felt certain of one thing: she was no longer defined by the expectations of others. She was defined by her actions, her choices, and the courage that burned brightly within her. And as the stars stretched endlessly around the ship, Lyra smiled, knowing that she had returned not just as a princess, but as a force capable of changing the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly across the dark canvas of space. As Princess Lyra's ship glided steadily toward her homeworld, she stood on the observation deck, her hands lightly resting on the railing, and let the light of distant nebulae reflect in her eyes. Her journey had changed her in ways she could not have imagined. She was no longer the princess mocked for her supposed flaws. She had become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than anyone, including herself, had expected. Beside her, Captain Alex Mercer studied the navigation charts, though his gaze often drifted to the princess. He had watched her grow from uncertainty to confidence, from fear to courage, and he had seen something even more remarkable: Lyra's quiet determination to use her newfound strength not for pride, but for hope, for guidance, and for change. The journey home was filled with discussions about the future. Lyra and Alex reviewed plans for exploration, new colonies, and scientific research. They spoke about diplomacy, trade, and alliances not only between humans and Zrillians, but across the galaxy. Every idea was met with thought, curiosity, and careful consideration. Lyra realized that she had not only found her own strength, but had discovered the power of collaboration, the magic of two very different species learning from one another. Finally, the familiar silhouette of Zrillia came into view, its silver towers glinting in the twin suns. But Lyra's return this time was not just a homecoming. It was a moment that would change the entire planet. Rumors of her transformation had already begun to spread. The council, the courtiers, and even ordinary citizens whispered about the princess who had returned from the edge of the galaxy with knowledge, strength, and an aura of authority that could not be ignored. The ship landed in the Grand Docking Bay, greeted by a throng of citizens and officials. Yet Lyra's mind was focused not on applause, but on the work ahead. She stepped down from the ship with Alex at her side, her posture confident, her eyes bright with determination. Every step she took carried the weight of her experiences. Every word she spoke reflected her wisdom, and every gesture radiated calm authority. At the palace gates, her father, Emperor Varen, awaited. He had always ruled with strength and wisdom, but even he could not hide his astonishment at the woman before him. Lyra approached him without hesitation. "Father," she said softly but firmly, "I have returned not as the princess you thought I was, but as someone who has discovered her own path. I hope you can see that I am capable of more than you believed." The Emperor studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Lyra, you have exceeded every expectation. Your courage, intelligence, and perseverance honor not only our family, but our entire people. You have returned as a leader, and the galaxy will never seize Rillia the same way again." Lyra smiled, feeling a deep warmth in her chest. It was one thing to discover her own strength. It was another to have it recognized by the one person whose approval had always mattered most. In the following weeks, Lyra's influence on the court and the people grew steadily. She organized new programs to explore uncharted star systems, invited human scholars and engineers to collaborate with Rillian scientists, and initiated training programs for young nobles to learn problem-solving and resilience. She shared the story of her journey, not as a tale of adventure alone, but as a lesson in courage, perseverance, and the power of belief in oneself. Yet there was one transformation that would have the most profound impact her own. The energy from the distant planet had not only unlocked her physical potential, but had also quietly awakened her ability to bear life, something that had been impossible in the eyes of her people. When Lyra discovered this truth, she felt a mixture of wonder, joy, and quiet disbelief. She had never thought she could become a mother. Yet here was the proof that the universe could surprise even those who believed in strict rules and limitations. She shared the news with Alex first, and his expression mirrored her astonishment and happiness. "You've truly changed everything," he said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for all of Rillia." Lyra nodded, her heart full. "I never imagined this was possible. But now, I see that nothing is truly impossible if we have courage, support, and belief in ourselves." The announcement of her pregnancy spread quickly throughout the court. At first, some were skeptical. Old whispers and doubts resurfaced. But as Lyra continued to demonstrate her strength, wisdom, and calm authority, the skepticism faded. She had already proven herself beyond doubt in intellect, courage, and leadership. Now, she had proven that even the impossible could become reality. As the months passed, Lyra's pregnancy became a symbol of hope and inspiration for the entire planet. Citizens marveled at her strength, dedication, and grace. The human ambassador, Alex, continued to stand by her side, assisting, supporting, and celebrating each milestone. Together, they demonstrated that differences in species, culture, and upbringing could be overcome by trust, respect, and shared purpose. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the palace gardens, Lyra and Alex walked slowly among the glowing flowers. The air was filled with soft light, and the distant city shimmered peacefully. "It feels surreal," Lyra said softly, her hand resting on the small curve of her belly. "To think that something I never imagined could happen is happening." Alex smiled, taking her hand. "Life has a way of surprising us, but you've earned this. You've faced fear, danger, and doubt, and you've emerged stronger. This child is a testament to your courage and resilience." Lyra's eyes glistened. "And to you? Without you, I wouldn't have learned to trust, to explore, or to believe in myself. You've been my anchor, my guide, and my partner in everything." Alex squeezed her hand gently. "We've faced it together, and now we'll face what comes next together." Months later, Lyra gave birth to a child who embodied the best of both species. The baby had cerulean grace, with shimmering silver eyes and delicate features, yet carried the warmth, curiosity, and resilience of humans. It was a living symbol of collaboration, courage, and hope, a bridge between two worlds. The court and the citizens celebrated not just the birth of a child, but the legacy of a princess who had transformed her destiny. She had shown that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome prejudice and limitation. She had proven that humans were not just allies, but catalysts for growth, understanding, and change. Lyra held her child gently, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her own. She thought of the journey that had brought her here, from a princess caught in a cruel prank to a mother, and a leader capable of inspiring an entire world. She realized that life, in all its unpredictable glory, was not something to fear, but something to embrace. Her father, Emperor Varen, approached and knelt beside her. "Lyra," he said softly, "you have returned as a daughter, a leader, and now a mother. You have changed Zrillia, and you have changed the galaxy. I am proud beyond words." Lyra smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Thank you, Father. I hope that through my actions, our people can learn that strength, courage, and hope are more powerful than doubt or expectation." In the months and years that followed, Lyra continued to lead Zrillia with wisdom, courage, and vision. She established alliances with humans and other species, explored distant star systems, and nurtured her child as both a princess and a parent. She became a symbol of hope and inspiration, not just for Zrillia, but for the galaxy itself. The story of Princess Lyra spread far and wide. The princess who had been given away as a joke, mocked for her supposed limitations, had returned as a mother, a leader, and a force capable of changing the future. She showed that humans, with their courage and ingenuity, could inspire change even among the most rigid societies. Lyra looked out at the stars one evening, her child sleeping peacefully in her arms. She thought of all she had faced, all she had learned, and all she had become. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries, challenges, and wonders. But she no longer feared the unknown. She had courage, wisdom, and love, powers that could light the darkest corners of space. And in that quiet moment, Lyra knew the ultimate truth: the universe rewards those who dare, those who believe, and those who never give up. She had been given away as a prank, underestimated and mocked, but she had returned stronger, wiser, and more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Her legacy was not in titles, wealth, or even royal blood. It was in courage, perseverance, and the ability to inspire others. It was in hope, and it was in the knowledge that, no matter the odds, humans and Zrillians together could change the galaxy. As the stars shimmered beyond the palace windows, Princess Lyra, the mother, the leader, and the hero, smiled. She knew that the journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next with courage in her heart, a child at her side, and a universe full of possibilities stretching endlessly before her.